Welcome to Elevate Springfield, where we will dive into strategies and stories that help you rise to your full potential. Each episode, we'll talk about how you can take intentional steps to elevate your life and your business while making a meaningful impact on those around you. Along the way, we're going to bring in the change makers from our community that are already elevating. We'll bring the actionable strategies, you bring the discipline and follow through, and together we can elevate Springfield.
All right, let's go, Springfield. Time to 10x your life, your business, all of it. Time to crush those goals. Time to get after it. Let's go. You are listening to the Elevate Springfield podcast. Robert Ferriell here, certified 10X coach, speaker, and mentor, here to bring you actionable strategies. You bring the discipline and follow through, and together we're going to elevate Springfield. We're coming to you again from beautiful downtown Springfield in the Big Dog Construction Studio. Hey, we've got so much going on in Springfield right now. Make sure you are participating. Get out there, network with folks, be a part of the community, support local businesses, support local nonprofits, and let's go. We can all grow together. So, hey, another great episode for you today. We're going to get right to our guest after the break. Hey, Springfield, when it comes to reliable, high-quality roofing, you don't want to leave things to chance. That's why you should reach out to Acosta Angeli Roofing, your local roofing expert, serving Springfield and surrounding communities. From quick, dependable repairs to full replacement, from residential to commercial, they are your trusted pros. Call them today at 217-993-2748 or visit their website to book your free quote and inspection. Don't wait. A little leak now could lead to major damage later. Trust the local experts, protect your home, and get peace of mind with Acosta Angeli Roofing. And we are back. Joining me in the studio now, familiar face. Y'all know him, a mainstay in the Springfield area, Mr. Jim Langfelder. How are we doing today, Jim?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming to downtown Springfield. I've been working with you on a number of things over the years. Always enjoy a great conversation. You've done a number of things in Springfield, so much impact over the years, and I'm excited to talk about some of that stuff.
Well, same here, and appreciate you reaching out, because once you're out of office, I had a good mentor, my father, and he said it's like a roller coaster ride, and enjoy it while you're on it, because once you're out, it stops.
Right. Don't get many of those asks.
Ringing.
Sure.
But it just, I think people reach out when they have a challenge on their hands, or like this, they want to know, what's happening, things of that nature.
Before we get into what you've done in Springfield, mayor, and all the good stuff, let's just learn a little bit about Jim. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I grew up in Springfield, a large family. I have 12 brothers and sisters, so that was a special moment in time. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and if I could have my children go back in time, that's where I'd have them go back in time. To me, it seemed simpler. We weren't in the digital age. You went out and socialized, so it was a great time to grow up. But then I worked at the Esquire Theater, which is now closed.
Sure.
Carasotas Theaters used to be the show place, which is still operational. I actually became a assistant manager, and I helped open up the one on Dirksen Parkway. And then actually that's where my wife and I met at Capital City, and then she came and worked at Showplace. So I was the boss at the time,
right?
But it was all legit.
Right.
No favoritism.
Sure.
And, worked at Black's Hardware after I went to high school at Griffin. And then also went to the Career Center. Yeah. I learned that construction wasn't my expertise.
Not your thing, huh?
Right. I've probably been better off in architecture or something of that nature. But then when I was at Black's Hardware, I put my application around town, and I kept getting the same answer, that you need to go back to school. And so my mom actually signed me up for Lincoln Land Community College, because she didn't want me just hanging around and just working. So I had art class, because she was an artist, Illinois artist. And then that's how I started out at Lincoln Land, and worked full-time, went to school part-time, went on to Sangamon State University. But in between, I got a job in banking at Illinois National Bank, which was right north of the old state capitol. It was First American, then became PNC, National City, and then PNC is what it would be today. So I cut my teeth on a lot of different ways at the bank, which got me involved in the community more than I was on a personal level. And from there, I went to Security Bank, which is downtown. So I love that your studio's downtown because I have a love for downtown. And then made my way as treasurer in the city. I ran citywide and became treasurer, and then blessed to be mayor of this great city.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you were at Sangamon State, did you study business? Is that what what you did?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I started out, actually, I wanted to do business administration, and I was about a year away from them starting that curriculum. So I had economics and accounting. So I called it business management, even though the correct term is, I think it's management. But I took HR classes, things of that nature, but a lot of business classes that you would not normally get in that field of study. So it helped me in the long run, especially with regards to banking.
Yeah. So what drew you to banking?
Well, actually, it's just happenstance.
Yeah.
But when I was working at Black's Hardware, it was downtown. It's right next. It used to be right next to Saputo, so now it's, I think, a state office.
Yeah.
If they're still there.
On the east side?
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
across from the municipal building.
Yeah, I didn't realize that used to be there. Okay.
Yep. And so I went ahead and put my application around town because I didn't want to work Saturdays. I wanted Saturday. I'm a young kid in my early 20s, and I wanted the weekends off. So I put my application around town and just landed in the bank. I applied and they interviewed me, and I didn't make the initial cut, but then they called me back to re-interview for another position, and fortunately, I was able to land at IMB, Illinois National Bank.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Awesome. So you said treasurer. What made you want to get into that side of things, get into city government?
Well, in the government, my family is actually my uncle, Jimmy Dunham. I guess that's who I'm named after because my friends and family call me Jimmy, but professionally I go by Jim.
Sure.
Anyway, he was finance commissioner at the time. That was my mom's brother. And my dad ran his campaign. My dad was Jim Langfelder. He came to this country during World War II. My grandfather was Jewish and my grandmother was Lutheran. And Vienna, Austria was taken over by the Germans and Hitler. And they were blessed to be able to flee safely and made it to this country. And so they landed in Springfield. And my dad was an engineer by trade, but he eventually caught the political bug and ended up running for streets commissioner. And so he was streets commissioner, and we'd go door to door walking when we were young. And that's kind of how it was introduced to me with regards to the political bug. But it was all about service for us. He was a Democrat, I'm a Democrat, but really it came down to serving the public. And so from that standpoint, that's whatever business you're in, it's all about service.
Right.
Quality service is number one. It'll make you grow, make you succeed. But if you don't provide that quality service, you're going to have tough days ahead from not only a business standpoint, but from a political standpoint. That's what we always focused on. Our parents ingrained in us. If you're interested in running for an office, run for the one you're qualified for. So the treasurer is essentially the city's banker. And so when I was in banking, a friend of mine said, well, if you're interested, you should run for treasurer because that way you can learn the operations of the city. And then if you ever wanted to be mayor, you could go that direction. So that's how the timeline went. I was over at Security Bank. The treasurer, Judy Madonia at the time, decided not to run. And so that's when I put my hat in the ring and was fortunate enough to win the election. And the rest is history, so to say.
Right. I'm curious how they landed in Springfield after they left. They're looking to get out and everything, come over here. But how'd they land in Springfield?
Well, they went to Europe, by way of Europe. They went through the Swiss Alps to end up in England. So it's my dad has a book, The Incredible Journey. If you ever want to hear that story, just Google it. But he couldn't speak much English, so he and his sister to house, and they had like 100 refugee children. And they'd knock on the door and ask if they could take any of the children. And so he was the last one chosen because he couldn't speak English. So he ended up on a farm. He was separated from his parents. They were doing other work, trying to make their way to America. So they eventually got together in a year and ended up going by way of ship to the United States. I think it was via Canada. So when they ended up in New York, they lived there for a little bit. And then I don't remember exactly how they ended up in Illinois, but I remember my dad saying when they decided on what city to live in, they pointed to the map. My grandfather did. So he wasn't looking, pointed to the map, as Springfield.
Springfield. All right.
And so it ended up all right because he ended up selling petroleum for farm implement and he'd walk.
Uh-huh.
And so that's what he did for a living. And they ended up making it, the great American dream.
Sure.
One funny story, real quick story, is when they came downtown, my grandmother told my dad not to speak, because they had a heavy accent.
Uh-huh.
And so what's funny about it is he was wearing lederhosen, which are like shorts with suspenders.
Yeah.
And they were walking a cat on a leash. Well, if you want to be noticed,
Right.
I would definitely make you
That'll
be
do
noticed
it. That'll
with
do
the
it.
cat on the leash. But he ended up going to Lanphier High School, became a graduate there, and then went to SCI for a little bit and Purdue University, which is appropriate now because, they're making their way through the NCAA tournament.
Yeah,
and so, but then ended up meeting my mother here while he worked at the theater. Mom worked at the theater, actually. He worked at Arch Wilson's, but he'd always go into the theater and see my mom, and that's how they got acquainted and, ended up being married and created 13 J's. That's Joni, Jamie, Johnny, Joey, Judy, Jimmy, Jackie, Jay, Janice, Jeannie, Josh, and Jacob, and Julia.
Yeah.
So I didn't miss anybody, I hope.
No.
Otherwise, I'll hear from them.
I wasn't counting as you were going through, but it sounded like you hit them. It sounded like you hit all of them. No, I'm just always curious how, especially when people are starting to migrate across the country or something, why they stop in Springfield, why they stay, and things like that. It's just interesting. So.
But what's important is when he came to this country, we talk about, not to get real deep, but they talk about welcoming cities, things of that nature.
Yeah.
I think I'm a firm believer that all cities want to support the residents. But back then, you had to have a sponsor before you could come over to the United States because they wanted you to succeed.
Mhm.
They just didn't want to toss you to the wind. And that's really, so you weren't a drag on the government either. And so when you look at today's society, with regards to what we're dealing with, how to deal with immigration, it's shameful that neither the Democrats or Republicans get together and figure out a solution. They treat it like it's an on-off switch.
Mhm.
Well, there's common ground that you can work through. And so you don't put all the people that deserve to be here through all this angst.
Mhm.
And so, and that's what we need to do. We need to protect our borders, but there's a way that those living here, you can make sure that we do it thoughtfully and respectfully to make them citizens. And the same for individuals that want a better life like my family did. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here, or I wouldn't be sitting here.
Right. No, you're right. That's exactly the way they look at it. They think of it like a switch. It's odd.
Mhm.
It's either on or off. On or off. I
Right.
never really had heard somebody put it that way, but yeah, that's exactly right.
Right. And that's like government. It doesn't matter if it's local, all the way up to the federal government, or in business. In business, you have to survive. So you have to work out solutions. And sometimes I think we draw a line in the sand, especially with partisan politics, where they don't cross over and it's just a head scratcher.
Right.
And that's what I like about city government, supposedly nonpartisan.
Right.
There's partisanship there. But for our family, it's all about service. It's always been that way. So we're kind of a maverick when it comes to that because, some people think I'm a Republican, others think I'm a Democrat.
Yeah.
And what I tried to do is when I ran or was mayor, I just figured out what was the best solution for the city.
Right.
And that's how I governed. And so that's how my father governed.
Mm-hmm.
And, you'd step on toes, and sometimes it's everybody's toes, but
Right.
you really have that conviction to do what's right. And it's no different than your business. You want to do what's right in helping others and move forward.
Yeah, and that's what I've always loved about you because that's what you want to do what's best for the city. It's not a partisan thing, and that's the way it should be. It really is.
And that I should give credit to that tagline, if you want to call it that, because I had best for Springfield. That was Jerry Gobel. I don't know if you remember Jerry Gobel, but he did public broadcasting. I think he either had a connection with Quincy or he talked about the mayor there, and he always said, "Oh, I just want to do what's best for the city." I go, a light bulb went off. I go, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what job you're in or office you hold. That's what the driving force would be. And it reminded me of my father. He said, he started as a janitor. And he said, but I was the best dang janitor there ever was.
Uh-huh.
And that's what it should be. You should, whatever job you're in, do it to the best of your ability. And, you'll be rewarded in the long run.
Absolutely. So how long were you treasurer?
I served 3 terms as treasurer.
Okay.
So I came in 2003 and served to 2015.
Okay. And then at that point, you thought, "Hey, I'm going to go for mayor." Walk us through the thought process there.
Well, I love serving as treasurer. If there were no term limits, hard telling how long I would have stayed.
Mhm.
But there's term limits, so really your decision point has to be after 3 terms. But
Mhm.
I could have ran after 2 terms. People asking me to run at that time. A friend of mine, Mayor Davlin, was the mayor, and I'm not big on doing that. Been asked to run for different offices, but it had to be the right time to do that. But also, I was thoughtful about that approach on what the impact ultimately is
Mhm.
and go that direction. So 2015, I decided to run for mayor and move that direction. So, uh, yeah, it was a great experience. What one piece I would always throw out there because it is like a roller coaster ride,
Mhm.
and it's such a challenging job being mayor. It's Mayor Houston had talked about it like drinking out of a fire hose because you have coming at you pretty heavy. It doesn't matter if it's the utility, police department, fire department, public works, a lot of calls. It comes all at once, and you try to siphon through things, get things done. But what you really need to do in life is step back and smell the roses, they say.
Mhm.
That's one thing I probably failed to do because I was just always a problem solver. I've someone came to me with a problem, I tried to resolve it as best as you could. And I always felt that was my calling to get things done, move Springfield to a better point in time,
Mhm.
which we did. We went 2 years without a state budget during the Rauner administration. And then right after that, about a year later, 2 years with COVID.
Mhm.
So very challenging times, but we went through both those times and without layoffs and where others weren't as successful in doing that. And then, especially during COVID, it was such a, um, I guess, challenging time for our country and our communities
Mhm.
because of the social strife, especially with law enforcement.
Right.
Well, we had peaceful protests, and that's because we did a lot of outreach to
Mhm.
our community and we built the level of trust prior to that. It goes back to my banking days. And so we were very involved with all the areas of our community, especially the low income areas or the
Mhm.
ones that felt they were forgotten about, where we showed that we actually cared. And I think that's the reason that we didn't have the vandalism and the fires that other cities around us
Yeah, because
actually
we really
experienced.
didn't. Yeah,
Mhm.
when it was really going at a lot of places like that, and we did not have that.
Right. That's
So
a tribute to our people. It's a tribute to the council at the time, everybody being engaged, and the police department stepped up big time. They had to go to 12-hour shifts because we couldn't hire. They shut down everything. Their training was shut down and everything was isolated, but they kept our community safe. And we can't thank them enough for what they did for Springfield and our community.
so that first time, then when you ran, what were the big issues on the ballot that year? Do you remember?
Oh, well, the big issue is I just take it from the challengers, or,
Uh-huh.
I always ran for the position. That's my mentor is my father. I couldn't ask for a better mentor,
Uh-huh.
but he always said, run for the office. You don't run against somebody,
Right.
but you hear the noise or hear the ideas. And uh, the challenge was, what's the vision for Springfield?
Sure.
So that's what's challenged. The next time I ran, it's we weren't doing enough, no cranes in the air, things of that nature. And Springfield's on decline. And then the last time it was more like, well, we can make things better. So it's different times. But when I first ran, I was looking towards the future. And actually, I always gleaned criticism from others as a jumping off point
Mhm.
because even if someone's joking, there's a little bit of truth
Right.
to every comment,
Yeah.
it seems like.
Yeah.
And so someone said, well, you should have vision boards. And I go, well, that's interesting. I never thought of it,
Uh-huh.
but that's how I started doing things and outlining my platform. And so it was with the utility, having a reliable water source, what to do with CWLP, which mainly coal driven.
Right.
How do you make that more viable than what it was? It used to be the jewel of the city,
Mhm.
and it had some tough financial times because of the renewable energy. They got upside down on it with the wind contracts, things of
Right.
that nature. So that was a real big issue. But the level of trust with the police department was a big issue as well. And so the main three were CWLP, community development, and the police department. Those were
Mhm.
the main ones that stood out. But when you're running for office, it's always about the economy and safety.
Right.
It's the hierarchy of needs.
Oh, yeah,
And,
definitely.
that's, you never can fail trying to address those issues or make them better or improve on the current situation.
Right. So what are some of the things you're most proud of in your tenure as mayor?
Well, aside from, leading the city through the turbulent times of the no state budget, as well as with COVID shutdown, those were probably the most challenging and successful moments we had. But we moved ahead in regards to the police department. We brought in 21st century policing. We really embraced the community policing aspect. And it's more of building the level of trust with the community, especially the east side. When I was in banking, I did community reinvestment. And that's where community reinvestment is where banks were accused of discriminating against low income
Right.
and minorities in wherever the community was. And so they had to adhere to certain policies dictated or mandated by the federal government. That's the Community Reinvestment Act. So I was the coordinator for, at the time, First America Bank, and part of my area was Decatur. So
Yeah.
they sent me in to build a level of trust. I never knew how hard that was until I got to Decatur. And to come from an outsider and try to build it, even though we were just
Only
30 miles
minutes
away.
down the road. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I might as well have been in California.
Right.
But it really taught me the importance of winning support from others and really helping. They have to see your sincerity in making things happen. So that aspect was making bank deposits or making bank programs, lending programs, things of that nature for the individuals that don't necessarily have banking services. So it helps them along their pathway of life. And those lessons I brought to me when I served as mayor, and it helped with the administration, especially when it came not only from the financial aspect, but also with the police department. We were very engaged in the east side and with activities. I had some great police chiefs. Really, it was led by Chief Kenny Winslow.
Oh, yeah.
He was kind of a maverick, but he did things right. He's put in a tough situation, and he accepted that challenge and led the department forward. When my father was mayor, he had some challenging times with the police department. And when we were in the office, we were able to avert all of that. When other tenured mayors, they had challenges, we rose above that and really built the level of trust with the police department. So that's something that I point with pride to, especially during COVID that we talked about. The other part is with the utility, we put it on sound financial footing. When we came into office, we had less than a week's of cash available on the electric side. So we were able to refinance the bonds. We renegotiated the coal contract and moved that direction. And, when we left office, I think we were over 150 days of cash.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So put it on a good financial footing towards the future. We shut down the older parts of the plant. Dolman 33 is not running. We had Dolman 4, and then we partnered with University of Illinois to do a carbon capture program with the federal government and the state where they capture 99% of the carbon emissions. That way, with the changing of the laws of state and federal coming down the pipeline with coal, you could capture those carbon emissions and use them for a useful byproduct.
Yeah.
So you're trying to get Dolman 4 to provide energy for the future. And then the other part we were striving towards is with Lake 2 with COVID. And that's been an argument, Hunter Lake forever.
Right.
And so what I said, and this is an important lesson for everybody, I'm sure 80% or more learned this from COVID. When you have a situation come up, you have to have alternatives. You have to have backup options. Well, for us, it was always an argument between Hunter Lake or nothing, or if you want to build a pipeline from Havana or wherever, which would never happen. But the argument is, what's your backup water source? Because right now, Springfield doesn't have one. So we provide water to Sherman and Rochester, other smaller areas, but we don't have a backup plan. And that's really where Hunter Lake concept came from. When the city was in a drought situation, I'm talking decades ago, they had a permit to dam the Sangamon River. And part of the agreement was, well, if we give you this permit, you have to come up with a backup water solution. And so that's what the tug of war has been all along. But the backup was either Hunter Lake or building the pipeline. Well, the Havana is like 40 or 50 miles away. We connected 11th Street. That was needed when my dad was in office. So we're talking over 30 years ago. We finally got that road connected from Stevenson Drive to UIS. And it took like 30 years to get done.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Right.
My dad probably started, I think, when he was streets commissioner. And it kept going on. And then luckily, when I was mayor, we were able to cut the ribbon. But that's how long, just to go like a mile.
Just to go that.
So go
yeah.
50 miles, it's not going to happen.
Right.
But you have to have a backup water source. So what is that backup? You can dredge all you want. You cannot create water. And so that's really the challenge for us, because the communities of the future, if you have a reliable, quantifiable uh, water supply, then you can grow. I mean, you don't have to worry, and that's what it's all about. If you're global or local, and that's what it's been with the utility. We've been able to be an island to ourselves of sorts, because we had our own energy, own water source, and they were reliable and they're high quality. And I think we've lost that competitiveness, and we haven't really stepped it up or continued to step it up like it should be. But with AI now, they're talking the data centers and everything.
Right.
One of the sources is water.
Yeah.
And that's a concern, is what's it going to cost the consumer,
Mm-hmm.
and what's the long-term impact. And so you really have to think ahead and really put yourself in the best position for growth, but survival.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Because, I mean, when you're looking at businesses looking to relocate to Springfield, they're looking at all those utilities too. Do they have the infrastructure necessary for us to grow and thrive here? So it's super important, not just for our residents, but for growth.
Right. Especially out west, when they gone through the droughts and things of that nature, they'll be looking to move. And the more you're able to provide those services, the better off you'll be in landing them.
No doubt about it. Any other big items from your mayor days?
Well, the one big one still going on is the rail project.
Right.
And
Yep.
actually, we had it targeted to be finished by 2025, but we're in 2026.
Right.
So I think there's one missing component, and that was probably me being in there, but
Sure.
that's how it goes.
Right. Right.
But one of the most challenging things we did, and it's kind of gone, and I'm not here to beat my own drum, because what it's about is, like I said, it's about resolving problems or finding solutions. When we first got into office, one of the first conversations I had was on the rail. And I thought it was going to move to 11th Street, but we met with the FRA, Federal Railroad Administration, and they had some other engineering consultant as myself, and then Jim Mole, who was at Hanson Engineers at the time. Great individual, really done a lot for the rail. He's now retired. But we're having this conversation, and they're saying that it's not going to be able to be moved from downtown. I said, well, that's not what we understood. We understood it's going to be over on 11th Street.
Yeah.
And they were pretty adamant it's not. And that's the first time. Jim Mole's really quiet. That's the first time I saw him ever get upset or a little angry or agitated. Sure. And but fortunately, we put enough pressure on them to get it moving in that direction. Now you see the results. But the other time was we met with Horace Mann at the time, and Salvation Army was building a shelter right across the street from Horace Mann.
Right.
And they're going to be located like within 15 feet of the railroad tracks. At that time, they had promises by the state government. They helped fund it, which never came to fruition. And so they have this building there. And so when I met with Horace Mann, and it was, of course, the county was there, the Hanson Engineers were there, and they were concerned of what's going to happen, because, they have plans to possibly expand. And, how's this all going to lay out? Especially, you have a shelter over there, and then the county wanted to expand their footprint. The original draft was there wasn't a shelter there. So at that time, the buses were downtown on Capitol Avenue. Anyway, long story short is we had long conversations with Salvation Army, and we convinced them if we'd look for alternative locations, would you move? And they said yes. And so we found the Gold's Gym. And at that time, we could buy it for $1.2 million. They were buying that other building to fix it up and everything, $8 million.
Oh, wow.
So you're talking like over $6 million
Wow.
savings.
Yeah, I don't remember that part. Wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah. And so we got the okay. They were interested when they saw the building, didn't need any, really, is wide open space, didn't need to do any refurbishment. So we kept it under wraps to get everything tied before we made the announcement. Of course, the council members are all a little nervous. Sure. Where's it going to land? Everybody wanted to know where it's going to be. But that's probably our most successful project, because we didn't let it out until we had everything lined up. And so when we did the press release, or the news conference, I think it was probably my first and nearly my last, because how it ended up, when you're moving a shelter, even though I thought it was great, it's by Comer Cox Park space, it didn't sit well with the residents, and they felt blindsided. So we kind of went back to the drawing board, and we did open houses there, walk people through. That's
Mhm.
the first time I met Alderman Gregory. He wasn't an alderman at the time, but he
Oh,
came
okay.
walking through and he goes, "Oh, I think I could see the possibilities." So he had an open mind at least. But what we ended up doing is I talked to Major Woodard at the time. He ran the Salvation Army. I said, really, what we need at this point in time is we need to make sure that people don't go into homelessness.
Mhm.
People are a paycheck away from becoming homeless.
Right.
How can we stop the proliferation of homelessness? And that's really what we need to do. And so he accepted that challenge, and that's what became the community center, which is utilized. And now the alderman that voted against it actually said, "This is a great
Mhm.
asset for that area," and it's really helped because they provide housing assistance, they provide athletic assistance,
Yeah.
computer assistance, job training. So it's really been a good fit, but it wouldn't have happened without the challenges. And then finding really use good solutions for that. So we moved in that direction, and that was a great challenging project, but it is moving forward. Hopefully they follow through and get the rail completed because that it will be a benefit for the city, and it makes sure that the rail traffic moves off downtown and
Right.
quit splintering it, and
Mhm.
really make a usable hub and really make things go.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No, that Salvation Army spot is great right there. I'm actually on the advisory board over at the
Oh,
Salvation Army
great.
now. So yes,
Mhm.
I've been learning a lot more about them over the last year or so
Mhm.
and helping out and everything. It just that seems to be a really great fit.
Major Jeff Eddy's
Yeah.
done a great job picking up the reins and
Mhm.
really, Salvation Army. The reason we asked them to do that because Major Woodard and Major Jeff Eddy now would tell you they're here to fulfill a community need.
Mhm.
And so he heard that call and he stepped up for that. And our community rallied around that. We have great organizations that are here to help the homeless. That's probably another segment altogether that we could talk
Mhm.
about
Yeah, absolutely.
because I have my own concepts on that. But really, that's everything's moving in a positive direction. That's what we need to continue to do is build on what's there and make it better. I mean,
Mhm.
that's what it's always been about. Don't tear things down just to tear them down, but build on for the future. And how do we make things better?
How's that feel? Some of those long-term projects that you were working on as mayor, like the rail and all that 11th Street corridor out on North Side, North Grand,
Hmm.
everything that's all starting to come to fruition and everything. That's gotta feel good though to see some of those projects that you worked on for a long
Oh,
time
yeah.
starting coming to a
Right.
coming to an end point, right?
Right, but that's the necessity or the benefit of knowing your history because you can learn from it and make sure things do happen. So, I'll just really quick the fire department. One of the things we did with COVID is we did get funds for that. So we were able to match that because we had a corporate fund and a healthy balance. We
Mhm.
matched those dollars with corporate fund dollars to build 3 firehouses.
Yeah.
So we were able to rearrange the firehouses to really sustain our class one rating that we achieved back in 2016. But one of the firehouses was out off of Woodside Road. You go past Veterans or Route 4, and it's right there on the left. It's to the west of Panther Creek.
Yeah.
And so that project, the city owned the land when my father was mayor. So, excuse me, again, 30 years ago, and they never were able to afford building the firehouse. So we're actually put ourselves in that position, finally get it built. And now instead of having 8-minute response time, they're just minutes away. The
Mhm.
rest of the city enjoys 4 to 6 minutes. Out there, it was 6 to 8 minutes. And every minute counts when it comes to fires or what have you. So it's good that we're able to do that and maximize resources and
Mhm.
make that happen. But on the federal side, I will give Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth credit
Mhm.
because that bill, I think it was the CARES Act, or they might have called it something else. They had so many bills falling
Sure,
through
sure.
that the city and the school districts benefited from, the county benefited from,
Mhm.
tens of millions of dollars here locally. It passed by one vote. So I always tease them. I said, I'm not sure who cast the tying vote and who cast the lead vote,
Sure, sure.
but we really thank you for it because what they did was benefited not only Springfield and the school district, the county, multiple ways, but cities across the country
Yeah,
by
absolutely.
that one vote.
No
Mhm.
doubt about it. As your time as mayor, what are some lessons you learned kind of running the city and with the city council and the whole thing? What are some of those lessons you learned?
Well, the one I learned, I had a transition team that when I first brought on, asked them for what they would like to see happening or what were the critical items we were facing, things of that nature. I probably, if I hindsight's 2020, I probably would have kept that going to a certain degree, but that's one of those things that you have to weigh because of the political aspects of things.
Mhm.
And if everybody has good intentions, you don't have to worry about things like that. If everybody's in it for the right reasons,
Right.
you don't have to worry about it. But unfortunately, that's part of politics. It doesn't matter if you're in business or whatever. One of the classes I took was organizational development. And the teacher there, the professor, he always talked about organizational politics. And, it's unfortunate part of our society. It's just part of the way we are, but because everybody wants to get ahead. But if everybody stayed focused on the goal at hand and going towards that, I think we'd be totally different. But one of the other things we did well were the ward plan meetings. So that's where we actually reached out to the community instead of going and bringing in your police chief or your engineers or public works and sitting down with them or saying, here's what we have going on. We opened it up to the public and said, what would you like to see? And what do you like to see or what do you like or don't like? And so it gave them the opportunity to really open up their minds with regards to the potential of Springfield, but also know that they're being heard, because you listen to them. And that goes back to when we had troubling times during COVID.
Right.
I think people appreciated that they knew we were out there way before listening to their concerns. And
Right.
so that aspect was usually helpful. But I think looking back, it goes fast.
Yeah.
When your kids grow up,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
look at grade school, it seems like takes forever.
Uh-huh.
High school, college, it goes really fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the point I'm at right now. My oldest is in high school. If people that watch the show, they see her on here on Tuesdays, and yeah, it's just crazy how it's like last week she was 5 and now she's 15.
Right. Times you have to step back, and I didn't really do this, and really take in what you're accomplishing or what's happening, and really appreciate the moment because I didn't do that well enough. I was always on to the next challenge, listening to critiques and how we can do things better. But that was always beneficial. Is the critiquing yourself. Don't
Right.
take things personally. I remember when blogging used to be really severe. It's kind of toned down now, but it was severe back then, and the media was really severe. Now it's unfortunately the media has kind of waned a little bit, but that's important that they ramp it back up because that's why I appreciate your podcast because people are going to have a hard time understanding what's real, what's not,
Right.
what's factual, what's truthful, and move that direction. But that's the challenge. I'd read all the blogs. And one time I met a gentleman in public and I said, oh, yeah, I read your blogs. He goes, you read my blogs? And he was almost embarrassed
Sure.
because how he berated me. And I
yeah.
go, well, I just read it just to see what you're thinking. Just because someone doesn't agree with you, you just listen to it and, you disassociate the personal attack.
Right.
Is there something really bothering them that makes sense? And so that's what you try to eliminate. Because if it's real, you need to change it. Now, if it's not real, you need to make sure you point it out and say, this is not right. You're way off here. And so that's part of it. But the greatest piece of advice I ever got was from my father. He said, never lie, always tell the truth. That way you don't have to remember what you said.
There you go.
So when you're in politics or government or whatever, especially when they're firing off questions, regardless of what the issue is, if you're always being truthful, you don't have to recall, well, what did I say? And double cross yourself because there's reporters like Bernie Schoenberg out there and they'll write down and keep great notes and they'll bring back issues from way back when and they'll call you out
Right.
if you said something different.
Sure.
They're doing their job. But that's one great piece of advice that really proved beneficial for me because I always remembered that and it really kept me out of being in the crosshairs of things.
That has to be difficult though, kind of dissociating the critique because I mean, public figures when you guys get berated by some people. I mean, that has to be difficult, going through all that because people can be just absolutely brutal.
Right. Oh yeah.
So.
Especially now, I think that's what I worry about the next generation. Going back to how we grew up. I mean, people say, "Oh, you didn't play basketball?" No, I wasn't good enough. I would have got cut. It's not like everybody played, and we received our share of criticism, but
Right.
that made you a better person. And so I think that's what we're missing sometimes. And the social skills are so important. When I attended Sangamon State University, Another great piece of advice was from a professor, and he said, this is before cell phones. He said, big businesses, they will hire liberal arts students because they don't want to teach them how to communicate
Mhm.
because they excel at communicating verbally and through written word.
Yeah.
And so he encouraged us to perfect that part of our skills, our traits.
Yeah.
Like we were talking offline, the more skills or traits you can accumulate, the more resilient you'll be for the
Mhm.
future. But the ability to communicate is paramount to anything, especially in the cell phone age and
Yep.
things of that nature. So that'd be one piece of advice I'd love to share, to make sure that you excel verbally and through written word, because that's kind of a lost art at times.
No, completely agree. And we were talking before we went on too about, what my daughter and I, how she's on the podcast and we do a lot of different things. And that's one of the main reasons why I put her in a lot of those things is to hone that communication skill, because it's
Right.
so important no matter what you do.
The
It,
greatest impact I had on children, I'd go into school, and it didn't matter if it was grade school or high school after I was mayor.
uh-huh,
And I didn't graduate from college till I was like 29.
uh-huh.
And so I'd ask the question. I said, "Oh, how many of you know what you want to do?" And a few would raise their hands, or if they're going on to college or what have you. And then when I told them I didn't graduate from college till I was 29, you should have seen the surprised look on their face.
Sure.
They thought you'd have to do this,
Right. Done,
just
yep.
planned out.
Uh-huh.
No, some things you're thrust in those situations, like
Mhm.
Kenny Winslow when he
Yeah.
became chief. That's how he was thrust in that situation. But other times, it's like a river. You just go along life and you accumulate talents and kind of migrate to what you're best suited for. And that's the path I took. It's kind of non-traditional,
Sure.
but it opened up their minds to anything's possible. Especially, they thought, oh yeah, I had to go to high school, I had to go
Right,
college.
I had to be done with college by the
Yeah.
time I'm 22, and then I
Right,
can do this.
right.
Yeah.
Now, you have people that don't reach that level of education, so you don't have to be a college graduate, really what you have to care, whatever business, going back to being that best person possible.
Right.
Like your sign, you are greatness. Don't fight it.
That's my favorite
Yep,
one, right? That's
yep.
my favorite. That's why it's behind my head every single time. You are greatness. Don't fight it.
That's right.
That's right.
So be great at whatever you do.
There you go. So for you, any plans to get back into politics at any time soon?
Well, it's a family affair, so my wife likes it as it is now.
Yeah.
So we'll wait and see. Really, hopefully people stay engaged. I was talking to somebody that retired before my last election. I brought something up of current events. They said, "Oh, we don't even watch the news anymore." I go, "What?" And he goes, "No, we just do our thing and don't do that." And I thought that was kind of strange, and because here I'm in the office and
Yeah.
you thrive on what's happening, but when you watch what's happening nationally, it's pretty easy to get downtrodden by things.
Very
But
easy.
really, what I try to do, not to be preachy, but try to stay positive. One of my favorite animals is a turtle. Don't be like a turtle and withdraw.
Mhm.
You have to really be involved. People have to be involved, because once we stop being involved, whether it's in the government or business, that's when things can go awry. So you really need to be active, be involved as much as possible, call out the truth. So if someone says something that's not truthful, you need to call it out, especially this day and age with social media,
Yeah.
because you got the keyboard warriors and people who try to recreate history. So it's incumbent upon all of us to really remember our history and really move forward in a positive path of optimism to the future. And, because our greatest assets are our children, and
Mhm.
we need to make sure they have a better path than what we did when we were growing up. That's what our legacy should be.
Mhm.
And we should be making it easier for them, not harder.
Completely agree. So what are you up to nowadays?
Well, I consult a little bit on people call me about, I was in banking, so I did housing and business projects. So I get called from time to time, especially if they're trying to work through some aspect, if they're dealing with government or
Mhm.
red tape. But
You'd
my
be a
greatest,
huge asset for that.
but the greatest joy I have is grandparenting.
Yeah.
And when we first became grandparents, my granddaughter, she was born right during the pandemic.
Uh-huh.
Pandemic hit. I think we shut down end of March 2020. She was born April 2020.
Oh, okay.
We couldn't even go to the hospital. My son was the last one, I think, that was able to go to labor and delivery. But for the first year, I was wearing a mask because I was still working. I was out in the public, and even though everything was shut down, we still worked. And I was afraid, regardless how you feel, you don't want to take a risk and infect somebody.
Mhm.
So I wasn't a big vaxxer at
Right.
all.
Yeah.
I never had a vaccination. I never had a flu shot. So I grew up in that generation where you didn't take a lot of medicine. My wife was the opposite, but that first year I did get my flu shot, my COVID shot, and my shingle shot all in 1 year. And then so I said to the public, I said, however you feel about COVID, you'll you'll be like the flu eventually where you'll decide if you want a flu shot or not. You're going to decide if you want a COVID shot or not. But that's just the era we're in. Accept it. You know,
Mhm.
you don't have to agree with it or not, but you have to make sure you keep people healthy or look out for them. But my going back to my granddaughter, I wore a mask because I couldn't bear the thought if she would have got sick,
Right.
and I
Right.
wasn't going to take that risk. For a full year, I wore a mask,
Mm.
but it's nothing like it in the world. I told my kids, I said, "We love you, blessed to have you, but there's nothing like being a grandparent."
Just something different
Oh
about
my
being a
gosh,
grandparent.
it's
Yeah.
nothing like it. And
Yeah.
I have a grandson as well, and it's just the greatest thing in the world.
Love it. Love it. So, any other ways you elevate your life personally outside of hanging out with those grandkids?
Well, I was looking forward to baseball season until the Cubs lost
All right.
yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But the Bears gave us a lot of joy,
Uh-huh.
or me personally. But sports a little bit. I do softball. They have a senior softball league that I played in a little bit. The horseshoes. I go watch
Oh,
the
yeah.
horse at Springfield Horseshoes, and so I'd really encourage people to embrace the horseshoes. I mean, Jamie Toole and Melissa Gaynor, they came to this city. They have adopted us, and
Mhm.
they've just done a great job. And going back to all the projects, the North End on North Grand, that's going to be a transformational
Yeah.
change when the rail goes through. And then you have Pillsbury and what's happening there. We've
Yep.
helped with that project, but also what they're doing with Robin Roberts Stadium.
Mm.
So it's going to be a great corridor, but it's helpful if people would get involved and really enjoy what's right in our own backyard and show some support, and you'll enjoy it in the process.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They've done a phenomenal job.
Mhm.
They are
Mhm.
absolutely great, and now they're bringing the women's professional baseball
Right.
toward the end of the
Right.
summer into the fall. I mean, that's
Mhm.
huge for
Mhm.
Springfield.
Mhm.
So yeah,
And you can see local homegrown individuals
Mhm.
excel with regards to that. So he played in the World Baseball Classic.
Huh?
He got drafted by the White Sox.
Okay,
And so Sam Ananachi. So
that's right. Yep.
he played with Team Italy
Mhm.
because his family's Italian.
Huh?
So you had the rights to play for the team, and they I think ended up in third or fourth. So
Mhm.
he had a great series, and it's fun listening to Score Chicago radio. That's what I listen to.
Yeah.
And you hear his name all the time. They're excited that he's going to be a White Sox.
It's
And
fun.
here's someone that's played at the Horseshoes, and so you have next professional player could be out there playing, and you can enjoy it. But they do a lot of extracurrial activity
Oh
out
yeah,
there.
just to
So
make it
it's not
fun.
based.
Yeah.
It's not about the what's on the field. It's what's off the field. Is
Right.
what Jamie Toole would say.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think one of the first times I talked to Jamie when he was talking about what they were doing, he said, "Yeah, we're gonna have a big party out there, and then a baseball game's gonna break out." I was like,
That's right.
That's about right.
Well, they
It'll be
came
fun.
during COVID.
Uh-huh.
Is someone mentioned that they're coming and they're going to have a news conference. I went to it, and they had Jeff Jarrett there and
Yep.
made the announcement. But during the pandemic, I mean, that's a big leap of faith.
Mm.
And so that's one of the great things I'll look fondly upon that time frame, because COVID wasn't fun for any of us.
No.
But for them to come to Springfield and say, you got a lot going on here, and they liked it, and they're still here and really investing through some challenging times, it'll be a great asset for Springfield. But the other thing I forgot, probably the biggest thing, one of the biggest things we were able to pull resources together was the Shield Sports Complex.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
definitely.
so we can discuss that another time, but that was a very challenging project, and it didn't get off on the right foot. And so we were able to get people in a room and move it along where it's more acceptable. And now you see what the fruits of our labor is happening right before us.
Yeah, it's massive. My brother, he coaches all his daughters and everything. They've already had dozens of games out there,
Oh, yeah.
out there
Yeah.
at the dome and everything. It's great for Springfield.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it.
And with Lucky Horseshoes, I would encourage everybody out there. Let's pack that stadium this summer.
Right,
I'd love
right.
love to see that.
Oh, yeah.
So
No doubt about it.
Well, Jim, so much great stuff today. I always like to close with these last couple of things. Let's give the audience a piece of advice, one on the personal side and one on the professional side, to help them elevate their life or business.
Well, on the personal side, I would say really embrace your family, embrace your community and your business. Probably in that order is
Mhm.
how I'd put it. Because if you're religious, God's first and foremost. or however you, spiritually make yourself better. Because it's important to I always do self-critique. So I guess the takeaway would be do self-critique to see how you become a more well-rounded person.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have at the forefront that spirituality and your family at the core of that, and then your community and whatever you do, whether it's business or what have you. That's paramount to all. So, so that's from the personal standpoint. I've always done that is doing the self critique. And my father's piece of advice, it goes without saying, always tell the truth. That way you don't have to worry about
That's right.
what you said. But the other part, from the business standpoint, again, it kind of dovetails into that. You really assess where you're at and how can you build upon things. A lot of times when you have a new job or something, first thing you want to do is put your stamp on it.
Right.
Now, sometimes it's better to get a lay of the land and assess it and then build upon what's good. And then what's not good, change it. And so that's the simple thing I did with when I became mayor, assessed what was working and build on it. And then wasn't working, you changed it. Because otherwise you're going to be in molasses. You're just going to trudge along or you're going to go backwards. Nobody wants to do that. You want to go forward. So that's probably the best piece of advice I could offer is always assess your situation. How can you make it better? What's not working? And then build on what's working to make it better.
And is there anything we can do community-wide to help elevate all of us here in Springfield and the surrounding communities?
I think really not being so hard-headed, drawing the lines in the sand. Listen to others. And like I said, if you're really listening to somebody, you can find that common ground, whatever it's in. But really, from a community standpoint, you want people to come together and really lift Springfield up. We have very challenging times, especially with downtown. When you look at downtown, there's some major things that can be happening. That's why I love that you embrace downtown because it's a great space and it's really the heart of our community. What can we do together to make it better and move in that direction? But I think, unfortunately, in today's society, we're too segmented at times, whether it's geographically or COVID. What happened with COVID is I think people said, I'm going to batten down the hatches, take care of my family.
Right.
I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to take care of what's ours. It's your survival instincts.
Right.
And so I think people have done that. Now we're coming out of that time frame, and really we have to get back to the way we engage one another and work together to make things better.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, I had a great time.
Yeah, same here.
Catching up
Appreciate
with you.
it.
Yeah, it was all great conversation. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it again if you're up for it.
Sure.
We can dig into a lot of different things.
Oh, yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah,
It's fun.
Yeah.
Well, Jim,
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell us again the book that your dad had, and if people want to go and learn about what you've done, where they could go, things like that.
Well, The Incredible Journey is my father's book. It just talks about his life, and it is an incredible journey, is appropriately named. But as far as myself, I didn't go out there. People have said, you need to go on Wikipedia and up it a little bit. So I'm working towards that.
Sure.
Or, maybe do a book at some point in time, kind of a takeoff of what my dad had done on the
cool.
Incredible Journey part, but make it more for younger people. Hopefully I get to that fruition because this year would have been his 100th birthday.
Okay.
Yeah. So, that's if you want to Google Ozzie Langfelder, Ossie.
Okay.
Not like Ozzie Smith.
Yeah.
And Ozzie Smith's going to be here.
He is
for the
here real
horseshoes.
soon. Yeah.
Not to mix it up, but you can Google Langfelder and it'll pop up. But if nothing else, watch the video that the State Journal Register did, SJR. They did a video and he just talks about and encapsulates probably within 10, 15 minutes his time to get here.
Okay.
And it's really motivational.
I'm going to go check that out. Well, thanks again, Jim. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert. Hope you have a great day.
You do the same. Well, we're going to let Jim get back to elevating Springfield. But for the rest of y'all, we'll be right back.
Looking for expert tree care with hometown integrity? Look no further than Sangamon Tree Service. They're your trusted local pros, delivering quality workmanship, exceptional customer service, and fair, honest pricing every time. Whether it's trimming, removal, or storm cleanup, their team brings professionalism and care to every job, big or small. Call the name your neighbors trust, Sangamon Tree Service, or visit them today at sangamontreeservice.com. Sangamon Tree Service, rooted in quality, built on trust.
When I first walked into Shudokan Karate Club, I was just looking for a way to get stronger, but what I found was so much more. Here we train in traditional karate, the real stuff, passed down through generations. Every punch, every kata has purpose. I've learned self-discipline, confidence, and how to protect myself. Not just in class, but in real life. It's not about being aggressive, it's about being prepared. This is more than a club, it's a way of life. Join us at Shudo-Kon, traditional, powerful, real. Ki-ai!
Well, thank you for joining us today, everybody. Appreciate you making us a part of your day. Hey, don't forget, while you're out on social, check ours out. You can check my personal one out at Robert Ferriell, at everywhere. Check out those Elevate Springfield pages, those Big Dog Business Coaching pages as well. Check us out over on YouTube. Give us a subscribe, give us a like or a follow on any of those channels. We would certainly appreciate it. So hey, take what you learned today. You bring the discipline and follow through, and together, that's right, y'all, we're going to elevate Springfield. Be great.
Looking for personalized insurance with hometown care? David Hilst, American Family Insurance Agents, here to help you protect what matters most: your family, your home, and your dreams. Whether it's auto, home, life, business, David and his team are proud to serve the Springfield community with trusted advice and reliable coverage. Local service, real relationships, peace of mind. Call today or stop by their office. They can build your dream protection plan together. Call 217-726-6343